Alright, bring it on!
Epic! This is the 5th set between Fantasy and JangBi, and this decides the title. We're back to Pathfinder, our double map, and remember, the only time that Fantasy has ever shown weakness on this map was that first set. That was the first time he's ever lost on Pathfinder. Oh god, the mascot. Oh god. I think female Bunky is the worst Bunky of all. But I was going to say that JangBi has already shown his cards on this map as far as wacky strategies go. He's already shown his cards. Fantasy has the replay of it. If his eyes aren't burned out, if the replay didn't catch on fire from those flames shooting out of the stage. But here we go. So, yep, both players have to answer the eternal question. Do I go for the same strategy again? Here we go. Go, go, go. Except, down at the 8 o'clock position in red is Fantasy. That means down at the 5 o'clock position in beige is JangBi. Back to Pathfinder. And as I said, both players have to decide, this is very important now, do I go for the same strategy again? If it's a good enough strategy, if it's more standard type of play, that's generally a yes, because players, they'll refine a strategy on a particular map, and they want to use the best possible strategy for the map, so they'll go for that kind of tweaked standard play, usually. But since JangBi went for a rush strategy and a very wacky strategy, if he tries to go for it again, I think it would probably be a mistake. On the other hand, Fantasy wasn't able to really reveal what he was going to do in the game. He just had to adapt to what JangBi was doing. Which it's good that Fantasy kind of played more Fantasy-esque in that last game, kind of taking control of the game, making JangBi play his type of game instead of JangBi's type of game. But okay, JangBi isn't putting up his gateway. The observers are pointing out this could be another 12 next opening from JangBi, which would be ridiculously gutsy. He definitely has some brass ones if he is going to go for a 12 nexus. Again, I do not see... yeah, the gateway, no gateway anywhere for JangBi, so he is going for a 12 Nexus opening again. Another 12 Nexus opening. All the JangBi fans look worried, as they should be. This is very, very risky. And on the other side, Fantasy is going for a wall off inside of his main again, so it's very, very similar openings from both. All the fans going crazy. The 12 Nexus is up. So JangBi's going to try to get that economic advantage, just like he did in the first set. It worked out great in that first set, just because he could jumpstart that carrier build so quickly. But I don't think he's going to go for carriers again on this map. Maybe not as early as he did in the first set. If he goes for the same strategy, this is going to be insane. Absolutely insane, because I think that Fantasy will have an easier time with it, because obviously he's seen it before. He probably studied the replay between the 4th and 5th sets to make sure if JangBi goes for that again, he's going to be better prepared for it this time around. So what could JangBi possibly have up his sleeve this time around? It looks like Fantasy's going to scout the wrong position. He's moving out to the 12 o'clock, which means he is going to scout JangBi last again, just like he did in the first set. Building his factory now, getting up his factory, and he's still mining with 3 SCVs on the gas, meaning he's going to start taking up soon. Possibly go for dropship play this time around. He didn't do any dropship play, surprisingly, in that first set. It's very surprising considering the last finals against Stork was entirely dropship themed build from him on Pathfinder. Okay, here's the factory coming up now for Fantasy. We're going to see where he branches off from here. He's finally going to get the scouting information. I'm not sure if JangBi is blocking his choke this time around or not. I don't see anything at the choke for him. No, he's not blocking his choke this time, so he's just letting the scout get inside of his base. He could be going for more head games, of course. He was trying to go for head games last game, but it's hard to do head games when your head is being bashed in by the other player, honestly. Okay, the scout in for Fantasy, just trying to see what he can find inside of that main, see if there are any lack of buildings, because it's definitely another map where a Protoss player could go for a proxy robotics facility, sneak some Reaver drops in early, stuff like that. Early drops on this map are so effective. But okay, the starport coming up now for Fantasy on the other side. I'll be very interested to see if Fantasy goes for dropship play in this game. He is building the control tower on that starport, which means that he could be going for dropship play this time around. It worked out so well against Stork. But of course, Stork and JangBi are pretty different players. Even though they're on the same team, Stork plays much more conservatively, I think. Both favor heavily Dragoon-packed builds. But here comes JangBi. He's already moving out to the natural expansion, see what he can get done. The control tower is up for Fantasy, meaning he's going to have his dropship out soon. And he is going to do a little bit of dropship play. Probably try to ferry some vultures inside of that main. The Dragoon's getting caught by the siege mode. Taking out the scout, though, so at least JangBi got something done there and didn't take a whole lot of damage on those Dragoons. I think he mostly just took shield damage. But yeah, this is going to be a vulture drop from Fantasy inside of that main. Let's see if JangBi is going to be prepared for it or not. Surprisingly, not many vulture drops in this game yet. But here comes the dropship. Already picked up the vultures. Going straight for the main, it seems. And let's see if he can do it. Can Fantasy do this? He's probably going to have his mines done soon on those vultures. But the dropship being scouted early by the Dragoons, and Fantasy decides to just go to the other side of this main. He might try to drop behind the troops. Stargate coming up. Oh man, JangBi is putting up his Stargate again. What are you doing, JangBi? So there's a siege tank behind this natural expansion, right within range of the mine line, the mining line for JangBi is ridiculous. So yeah. It seems that Fantasy is going to go for a similar strategy he tried against Stork by just locking down all of his options, keeping siege tanks around each base, since it's so easy to get behind the bases. He's trying to pick off as many probes as he possibly can before this vulture goes down. I think he took down 2 or 3 probes inside of that main. Corsair out again for JangBi. So I think JangBi is going for the same strategy as the first set, which is insane because that was a very kind of all-in rush strategy, and it looks like he's going to do the same thing again. The Corsair being scouted by Fantasy, sees that flying over his tanks. So Fantasy can probably assume that it's going to be the same type of build coming his way. The Corsair getting in there, getting all the scouting information again, trying to attack unsuccessfully. Can't find any air troops there for some reason. Can't figure out why that would be. But yeah, the fleet beacon is up for JangBi, and he's going for the same strategy again, researching the +1 attack for air to have ready to go for his carriers. And it looks like Fantasy is not going to be full this time around. He's going to attack much earlier with his troops. He's already moving over to the eastern side, behind the natural expansion, behind JangBi's natural, working his way over there with his tanks. And if he can get all those tanks together, the mine drags into JangBi. That's not good. And the Fantasy's moving in with his vulture as well to get a little bit of harassment at that natural. So that natural has been very well harassed already by Fantasy, but here come the carriers. Now the carriers are going to be able to help out a lot against this contain, the soon-to-be contain from Fantasy. Fantasy is trying to position himself well enough to be close enough to the... Actually, if he could get closer to the eastern side of the main, he could probably take out those Stargates. Not sure if he's able to scout right now or not. He's floating over right now with his engineering bay, but doesn't really have any other buildings over there to fly over and get the scouting information he needs to attack inside the main. But here comes JangBi. He's trying to snipe as many units as he can to protect his natural for the time being. A Wraith out now. It's going to be Wraith versus Corsair soon. The classic Wraith versus Corsair. Good old-fashioned PvT, that's for sure. But both Stargates are pumping carriers now, and Fantasy's trying to ferry everything inside the main. He has his tanks very close to that main. And now he has some troops inside of the main, so he can probably get closer to that Stargate and take it out. But the carrier is out now. The Corsair fighting for the carrier. The Corsair fighting for its life to take out this Wraith. Oh, man, he has to take out the Wraith. He does take out the Wraith. That Corsair to save that carrier's life, because Fantasy doesn't have... JangBi doesn't have anything else to protect that carrier other than a couple of Dragoons, but he needs his Dragoons to protect himself right now and break out of this contain. Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, if he would have gotten closer... if the Corsair had gone down, he had to get closer to protect the carriers. That would have been a very, very bad... But both Stargates are underpowered now. The pylon went down, so Fantasy, he still has all of his tanks inside of that main. Both players are just on 2 bases right now, but Fantasy, he does have his tanks inside the main. Going to be extremely difficult to get closer to that because Fantasy is just ferrying over troops. He's built an excellent contain behind that natural expansion. So, okay, Fantasy, I see him building more supply depots inside of his main. He's trying to end the game right now with this strategy. Armory coming up now for he's just now building his armory, so he has nothing to fight these carriers whatsoever. He's just committed everything to the tanks. And his vultures, JangBi's got to be pretty careful. He's getting close to that minefield, and he can't really afford to lose any ground troops now just because he's taken so many casualties. Lost his underpowered Stargates are going to hurt him a lot. Yeah, the Stargates going down the way they were. It's JangBi picking off the tanks inside of his main, though. But I have a feeling that Fantasy is going to keep ferrying those in. He's coming in with reinforcements now. Corsair just flying around looking for more wraiths to kill. Armor finally up for Fantasy, so he's going to have something to fight back the carriers, because the carriers were delayed, but they're going to start pumping again soon. So Fantasy got to get in there. He's especially got to get some vision of the high ground area, because he's close to the natural, but he has no vision there at all, so he can't really pick off the probes as they're mining at that natural expansion. JangBi getting a little bit too close for comfort to that minefield. Looks like he backs off, though. Maybe his star sense is kicking in, but one tank going down. Fantasy building turrets all over the place to protect his tanks until the Goliaths arrive, but only two carriers for JangBi, and that's all he's going to have for a little while. I'm sure he just started pumping again from his newly rebuilt Stargates. But Fantasy's still pumping from his own starport. He's going to try to get more dropships into play, most likely. And yeah, Stargates. One Stargate and the observatory coming up now for JangBi. He does not have an observatory, so he has nothing to pick off the mines at all. More wraiths coming in now for Fantasy. He's going to try to kill the carriers with wraiths. This is a crazy game. Corsair versus Wraith, that says it right there. But Fantasy... getting closer to tightening the noose on JangBi. He's just got to focus everything on those carriers. If he can pick off those 2 carriers, Fantasy will have this game, because there's nothing at all that JangBi will be able to do about this. Even more harassment, the Wraith being used as the vision at the natural expansion. Here comes JangBi getting closer, but an awful lot of turrets in now to pick off the interceptors. Still only 2 carriers in the clump. Oh, 3 carriers now for JangBi. Now he has 3. Still pumping from only 1 Stargate, though. Can't really afford a second Stargate. Look at all these turrets coming up now for Fantasy. Look at a huge turret line from Fantasy to protect his contain. Still picking off probes at that natural expansion. Now the SKT guys are kind of grinning there because, yeah, Fantasy really is tightening the noose, but he's still only staying on 2 bases himself. He's trying to end it with this. As long as he keeps down this carrier count, I'd say that Fantasy is probably going to take this. As long as those carriers can go down. He can't let them build up to critical mass, even though he's taking down so many probes at this natural. Look at that turret line. Oh, the turret line. Cracking me up. But okay, some ground troops moving out now for JangBi. He finally has observers in, so he's going to do a little bit of mine clearing, rather, and work his way to Fantasy's base to try to cut into the resupply line a bit, because Fantasy, most of his troops are kind of behind this natural, where JangBi can't really mine. He's trying to transfer back over with his pros, but those probably aren't going to last too much longer. If the Wraith is in, they're especially not going to last too much longer. And the carriers trying to break through the contain so the probes can mine at the natural. All the tanks go down there. But a lot of interceptors dying to the turret fire. Comes the counterattack from JangBi inside of the natural expansion. So I might see another base trading game. And this, a nice mind drag actually from JangBi into those vultures. And the JangBi fans going nuts because now JangBi has 5 carriers going. He's somehow gotten his carriers back up, and Fantasy, most of his units are kind of locked inside of the main. Now he has all of his Goliaths. He's been pumping nothing but Goliaths, but his Goliaths are locked inside of that main, and they can't get out, meaning they can't get over here to supplement this contain. So the contain is going to be basically gone. There's turrets. Well, we got turrets. You want turrets? We got them. They're over there, but nothing else is working for that contain. Here comes Fantasy with 4 Goliaths and 1 tank to try to keep on that contain. And he has enough turrets there to do this, I think. But he's got to break out of his base somehow. JangBi's done a good job of hanging outside the natural expansion of Fantasy, keeping his resupply troops from pushing over to this natural expansion again. There's... the Goliath is going to try to get the vision. I think the Goliath is going to try to sneak in inside of that natural expansion. The Goliath, being picked off by the Dragoons, I think, though. There's more probes being transferred. But here come the carriers now, a huge fleet of carriers moving inside of Fantasy's main, trying to take out those production buildings. So the factory goes down. One of the factories is down for Fantasy. That's going to hurt him an awful lot. The Bisu face again, slack-jawed. The carriers are moving forward again, trying to work their way inside of this main. Awful lot of carriers, a lot of interceptors, and I'm not sure if Fantasy's going to be able to deal with this at all. Again, his troops are split. He has some troops behind the natural expansion, some Goliaths are over there, and a tank. Still doing a good job of harassing that natural, but you can't have your troops split up, especially those Goliaths split up when you're trying to fight back the carriers. But Fantasy has amassed more troops, and he's probably going to try to move out soon to clamp down on this resistance from JangBi. JangBi pushing forward, he's trying to break through all the turrets. Huge turret line moving in with the Dragoons at the same time. The tanks are gone. No tanks at all, so the Dragoons move in uncontested to destroy the turret field. So finally, Fantasy's contain is going to be broken, but in the meantime, Fantasy has a ton of troops out, and this game is nuts, by the way. This is one of the craziest TVPs I've ever seen so far, and it's not even over yet. Here come the carriers. Still a lot of Goliaths out in the field, though. This Goliath focusing in on the carriers, gets one down to yellow. So JangBi's got to be a little bit more careful, and I think that JangBi is still only pumping from 1 Stargate. He's been harassed so much. Yeah, only pumping from 1 Stargate. He can't afford... Oh, he does have another Stargate. He hid a Stargate further away so it'd be out of range of the tanks. Nice. So he has been pumping from 2 Stargates, but probably not very much from those 2 Stargates, seeing how much he's been harassed at his natural expansion. Fantasy gets his 3rd. Fantasy gets his 3rd base. Finally have a 3rd base in this game after like 17 minutes. But okay, here comes JangBi. He's moving in with his ground troops, all of his Dragoons at the same time to try to blast through the Goliaths. Still going to be difficult, though, even with the ground. Here comes a bunch of Dragoons, though. So Fantasy on the back foot. He's trying his best to focus in on the carriers and snipe the carriers instead of the interceptors. But here comes Fantasy trying to get a little bit of harassment. Unsuccessful. Looks like JangBi was prepared for that. Now JangBi is focused his attention and energy, inside of the main again to try to snipe supply depots and production buildings. He took out 1 factory earlier, but not much else. With those carriers, here comes Fantasy inside the middle. He still has quite a healthy number of Goliaths. You got the Fantasy sneaking inside the main. Of course, there's not much mining inside the main, so there's probably not much he's going to be able to do here. I was a little bit of mining. Since JangBi's been harassed so much, he's been forced to run back and forth between his bases with the probes, so he hasn't kind of saturated up there. But JangBi being chased away by the Goliaths. So the Goliaths going after the carriers as the Dragoons go after the Goliaths is like a Benny Hill sketch or something. But here come the Goliaths trying to find those carriers. And Pathfinder does have a pretty large number of ridges where the carriers can hide, but not really in the middle. This is very dangerous of JangBi to be in the middle, even with his ground troops backing up the carriers. Still very difficult. The UUV looking kind of sad there, I think, because now JangBi is pushing forward. He loses one carrier in the process, but now he's getting closer and closer to crushing Fantasy's defense of the front. The Goliaths are focusing in on the carriers, takes out another carrier, so another carrier goes down. Fantasy sniping interceptor to the best of his ability, but the ground troops might be a little bit too much for him to handle. Yeah, the Dragoons flooding in now. All Dragoons, all carriers. JangBi fans going nuts because I don't think Fantasy has enough to fight this back. Hardly any tanks at all. He does have his third base, but he hasn't been able to keep up his macro. He hasn't been able to secure a third gas, and I think that's hurt his tank production a lot. But he has one tank on the high ground trying to push up there. JangBi doing his best, forced to kind of retreat there a little bit because he's still within siege range of that one single tank on the high ground. There's the Dragoons running back and forth, and JangBi is going to have to go for the killing blow soon. He can't really let Fantasy get back from this at all. He has to pick off as many Goliaths as he possibly can right now before Fantasy builds up a huge number of them, because I think some JangBi fans are actually crying in the audience. Excellent. The emotions that Brood War brings out in us all. But here comes JangBi taking out the mineral-only base. JangBi taking out the third base from Fantasy, so any economic advantage that Fantasy had is now completely gone, because now he's on equal footing with JangBi. They both have two bases, barely mining. This game is ridiculous. Here come the Dragoons running away again. Can't lose too many Dragoons to the tanks. Yeah, because Fantasy is working with minimal defenses now, just desperately trying to get back in this game, but just not sure if he has enough. More Wraiths being pumped by Fantasy. He's pumping some Wraiths now because JangBi's hovering around, trying to find an opportune moment to attack. He hasn't gotten it so far yet, but the Goliaths are kind of keeping him at bay for the time being. Only one Stargate at a time is pumping because JangBi is still on two bases. Both players on two bases. 21 minutes into the game. Nice. So, okay, the Dragoons hanging out in the middle, and JangBi has a pretty large number of Dragoons. I think he could actually A-move with this thing. Well, the Wraiths from Fantasy, he's going to try to fight the carriers with Wraiths. Possibly cloaked Wraith. There's the SKT, the SK Telecom T1 coach looking on, a little bit concerned because Fantasy is now reduced to using Wraiths to fight back the carriers. And the Observer going down there trying to see what was inside of Fantasy's main, but there's not much to see in this game now. I think that, yeah, JangBi is going to try to go for his third base soon. There were some mines over there to kind of block that. But if JangBi can secure a third base, as Fantasy's trying to do the same thing, if he can secure this third base, which he's doing, pylon wall to keep out the vultures, he will be able to win this game because he'll be able to support his carriers, and that will be enough as long as he doesn't lose them all to this Wraith Gambit. This is a risk from Fantasy. Expending his minerals on the Wraiths seems like kind of a waste on first glance, but if he can get a nice sneak attack with cloaked Wraiths, I don't think Fantasy will be anticipating Wraiths at all unless he comes in here with his Observer. But yeah, one good sneak attack could really swing this game from Fantasy, and that's what he's thinking right now. He's going for the sneak attack. And now there are observers out escorting the carriers, so it seems that JangBi might be up on this. Actually, he might be anticipating this from Fantasy, because he has his observers escorting the carriers around, meaning that cloak Wraiths really won't be that effective. They'll be sniped pretty easily. Wraiths don't do too well against carriers, obviously. But pretty large number of Goliaths still out for Fantasy. He has a nice little tank line there, too, to keep away the Dragoons. He's going to need them for defense of that new base, well, the rebuilt third base that he has going. And JangBi transferring over to his own third base. So JangBi is finally keeping up with his macro. 24 minutes, and we have 3 bases for each now. Hooray! It's extremely difficult to take bases on this map. I can see why so many games on this map have been short this season. But anyway, let's see what JangBi does. He's grouping up with everything inside the middle. Look at those observers, escorting the carriers around, looking for Wraiths. He knows Fantasy. He knows Fantasy. He knows Fantasy's going to go for Wraiths. But the race being grouped up now by Fantasy. He's going to have to attack soon. He can't really afford to lose too many production buildings here, that's for sure. But the race coming in, I'm not sure if they have the cloak ready yet. But even if they have the cloak, I don't think they're going to be able to do this. Oh man, Fantasy still trying to hold his ground and not reveal his wraiths yet. Hasn't revealed them yet. Oh, this is ridiculous. This game is so good, so good. 3 observers now escorting the carriers, as JangBi is playing it super safe, and I can't blame him at all. He just made a major comeback in this game, so he has no reason to push his luck at all in this game. He's got to play it super safe, super Samsung Khan, so to speak, and try to win this game by playing it safe. Pick off what he can, when he can, and retreat when he cannot do anything. But now he's going for the third base again. Fantasy's going to pull in with some tanks, which will probably force JangBi to retreat because he doesn't have any zealots to help out the dragoons. Yeah, he just falls back with his dragoons. He's going to try to pick off the tanks with the carriers. He hasn't had hardly any zealots in his games today. Heavily dragoon-focused, very Stork-esque, I have to say. But the wraiths going to be revealed soon. Look, the wraiths are in. Definitely revealed now. They shot the interceptors a little bit, but oh, the base goes down again, and Fantasy not quite close enough to do anything about it. And JangBi moving inside of the main, trying to pick off what he can. Oh, the fans going nuts. JangBi fans going nuts in the audience because he has taken down so many production buildings, so many supply depots. He just slowly grinding Fantasy down into a fine pulp. And, oh, Bisu looks so sad. that actually made me go, oh, poor Bisu. But okay. The carriers staying with the dragoons, which is very smart. And I don't want those carriers to get caught like that and sniped, not too many of them at least. But Fantasy is going to try to do this now. He's going to come in, he cloaks his wraiths, so he's very close to doing that big all-in gambit attack that I mentioned earlier. I think he might be able to do it. It's going to take a lot of luck, but if he moves in at the same time with his Goliaths and his Wraiths, oh god, is this going to be another elimination race? Oh my god, I think it will be, because Fantasy is going for JangBi's base, JangBi going for Fantasy's base, and I think they're going to try to eliminate each other here. Ridiculous. So here come the carriers inside the main yet again. Here come the Wraiths, going to try to do that sneak attack while JangBi is attacking with all of his units. The observer's a little bit out of position. I think there are still some observers escorting the carriers, possibly. Yeah, there are some observers escorting the carriers. So it seems that, yeah, Fantasy scanned, so he's probably going to try to go for the observers, snipe the observers first, and then he'll have free reign to take out the carriers. This is going to be so difficult, though. Extremely difficult for Fantasy. I'm just not sure if he's going to be able to do it. He's lost so much already. His natural expansion is gone. And now JangBi is falling back to take out the troops that Fantasy has outside of his own natural expansion. Yeah, JangBi has a much stronger economy now that he's mining at the 2 o'clock position, and Fantasy can't really do anything about it. Both players are going to try to meet each other in the middle, and yeah, let's see if we can finally get the wraiths come into play. They haven't attacked yet, haven't gone for the big gambit attack yet, but Fantasy's got to do something soon, holding his ground with the Goliaths and the siege tanks. Trying to take down a unit here, a unit there, and eventually grind everything down, but it seems that JangBi might be going for the big attack. No, both players kind of back off there. Look at the Wraiths going for the carriers, but I think the carriers are going to be able to take out these Wraiths. The observers, all the observers are sniped, I think. Most of the observers were sniped anyway. Yeah, the observers go down. A couple of backup observers come in, though. So Fantasy going to be sniped now. That almost worked out, though, for Fantasy. He took down a couple of carriers with that tactic. Nicely done from Fantasy, but I'm just not sure how much longer he's going to be able to hold on. It's just because his economy is so horrible. He's mining from that one drained mineral patch at his natural. He's distance mining from his natural. That's when you know things are not going your way, but some more mines being dragged actually into JangBi. There's Fantasy fighting back the carriers again. Oh, that's it though. GG from Fantasy, and JangBi takes the OSL. I can't believe it. Honestly, I cannot believe it at all. Oh, I'm getting a little bit teary-eyed. That's nuts. I can't believe that JangBi... Absolutely unbelievable. So JangBi takes the OSL, and the first Protoss player to do so since his teammate did in 2008. And getting a little bit of vengeance for the last season's loss. Stork's last season loss. But yeah, that was an exceptional series. One of the best finals I've seen, quite honestly. It was very good. Love to see set 5s. And a very good season as well. Man, OSL always stepping it up, it seems. Congrats to the last Protoss hope. Good job, JangBi. You overcame all the odds, buddy. Okay. This has been Nuke. Thanks for sticking with me through the series, through this season. I had a fun time. That was one of the most fun OSLs I've had in a while. Very exhausting, of course, as it always is, but fun nonetheless. Now, it's time to edit and upload. See you later, Nukenites. Thanks for watching.